Hello, today on the BRICS Africa channel, we're with South African businessman and philanthropist Jonathan Oppenheimer. And he is the spearhead of the South African Future Trust, a trust that was set up to help small business and also economic resilience, particularly during difficult and crisis times. We're talking to him at the South African Future Trust Summit, which is taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg. Jonathan, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome.
Pleasure, Peter. Good to be here.
So tell me about the summit. I've walked around, there's a lot of energy and excitement, and I guess this is what you were trying to generate.
You know, Peter, I think South Africa Future Trust Summit is 2 days of the year and a huge amount of planning that goes into it. The team has been incredible. I think the venue has really come together in an extraordinary way, and the energy we've got in the room is testament to what we're trying to build and create. But it's simply the tip of the iceberg. What we're doing behind the scenes with the South Africa Future Trust in building or trying to build an environment that can help communities come together in what we're calling a hyperlocal environment to create a space where people can prosper and grow, as you would imagine in the old-fashioned way a village could support itself and integrate with itself, is truly amazing. And so we have this idea of we're going to try and help build an operating system, and then we can build on top of that, either ourselves or others, a whole series of apps, so that our operating system will help society function and the apps will be the enablers. And it's just really exciting, and this is a microcosm of that in terms of who we have in the room, how they're interacting, and the kind of chaotic, dynamic, but very real and structured processes that are taking place.
I know it might be difficult to have absolute measures, but give us a sense, do you think, of the kind of impact this is having?
I mean, I'll do some maths, it's wrong, so this is directional. If we got 500 small businesses in the room today, and each one employs on average about 50 people, that's 25,000 people whose lives are being influenced by what we're doing in these 2 days. And those 25,000 people on African dependency ratios will be 10 to 1. That's 250,000 people whose lives we're touching. And my hope is that every single person who's here today is going to leave either with learnings which are going to make their business better, with contacts, whether they're suppliers, potential sources of capital, potential customers, such that they can make their business better. So if they don't believe that, they won't come next year. And the fact that we were able to double our size from last year to this year says that the guys who did come, pretty much an 80% repeat rate, so a lot of people have come again, and a lot of people have heard by word of mouth, by social media, that this is as powerful as it is, and they're here in spades.
What we're finding, of course, is that the young people are the ones that are most disabled or disenabled. And I wonder if this is something that you're looking at to make sure that the younger generation is the one that's getting empowered.
Well, yes, but it's also not sort of waiting for a handout. It's saying you can take control of your life. And one of the sort of themes of the conference is getting rid of those frictional costs that exist in your life. And the challenge that we talk about a lot is, in a personal sense, getting rid of the frictional cost in your personal life, then getting rid of the frictional cost in your business life, and then calling out those frictional costs that aren't in your control. And if you can do the first two, which are in your control, it's like muscle memory. You build a habit about getting rid of frictional cost. And by calling it out and having everybody else call it out, you suddenly find communities who can align about making the environment better, and so they can challenge government on service delivery, but not just, oh, we want service delivery, it's we want service delivery and you got to do X, Y, and Z. And that's much easier to deliver against.
What are you finding are the biggest challenges and obstacles that they need to overcome, that they need help with?
In the SMME space, cash flow, and cash flow, access to data, just actually often simple business practice, understanding GP and net profit, understanding how to make a business work. And so we're bringing all of that. There are lots of coaches here, There's Standard Bank offering both financial and legal advice where you walk in, it's free at the conference, but it builds a network. We've got a whole bunch of VC firms that are looking for investment opportunities. We've got a lot of startups that are looking for capital. And so we're trying to make that network and trying to effectively make it much easier to solve those problems.
You've mentioned a few names. Is big business coming to the party?
So interestingly, business generally has come to the party, and particularly the banks have been quite supportive. Standard Bank has been amazing. They've been with us from the very outset. I mean, South Africa Future Trust 1.0, which was the COVID relief program that we ran, which was incredible. We had the big five in South Africa come to the party amazingly, wrote 10,000 loan agreements in 35 working days. I mean, it's unheard of. I don't think South Africa writes 10,000 loan agreements in 35 working days today. But we did that, and we did it with the banks, and they've stayed with us. We've crowded in all sorts of other people, and a lot of PBOs, a lot of NGOs, and critically, actually, a lot of business coming to the party.
So it was born out of a very difficult period in life for the world, and South Africa in particular. We're now post-COVID. What has been the shift in terms of the journey for SAFT?
So South Africa Future Trust 1.0 was about recognizing that the employees in the SMME community, the small business community, frankly, didn't have a safety net. Big business had a safety net in the sense in South Africa we have UIF, which is the Unemployment Insurance Fund, so there was a mechanism to look after people if the businesses couldn't continue to employ them. In the more sort of general grant space, South Africa has a very advanced grant system where 16 million then, now 20 million people receive some sort of grant from government. We have food programs which are in place. But if you looked at it, the one place that didn't have a safety net in place was small business. And so we, my father and I and my kids, we identified that and we solved that, or solved for that. And the really sad thing is, we had R1 billion, it's a lot of money. We wrote 10,000 loan agreements. When we ran out of money at the R1 billion deployed, we still had another 30,000 loan agreements we hadn't even looked at. Wow. So we had a total of 40,000 loan agreements and we ran out of money. But the great thing is we got a whole bunch of incredibly good partners out of that. Those 10,000 loan agreements with some of the best SMEs in South Africa. And they, because we helped them through that time of crisis, have come back in spades and they are here. They're backing us and they're really bringing their game to support things like the South Africa Future Trust 2.0. And they're part of this ecosystem that we're trying to create, which is addressing all of these pain points for small business, for community, and we hope that as we bring them together and solve those problems, we really unlock an incredible growth opportunity.
Which kinds of businesses are stepping forward into this space more and more?
Manufacturers, service providers, financiers, you name it, they're across the board.
And I just wonder, as it continues to evolve, what are your hopes that this project, this trust can continue to do?
So what we're calling South Africa Future Trust 2.0, the second go round is this money that went out during COVID comes back from those 10,000 loan holders, is to redeploy that money to, as I said, build, not only have a conference like this where we, for 2 days, demonstrate the network, but for 365 days of the year, create effectively that foundational environment, call it the operating system, on which society can prosper. So if we get it right, huge gap between what we're thinking right now and getting it right, but if we can get it right, we will build the operating system for what we're calling hyperlocal societies. And then on top of that, we will either have our own apps addressing some of the pain points, but just like on the App Store, third parties can bring their apps to sit on top of that operating system. And our hope is we'll crowd in pretty much a solution for everything. And then the customer, whether it's an SMME, whether it's a person in society, can pick and choose what they really want from that smorgasbord of opportunities that sit on our operating system.
What's been the most rewarding thing that you've seen personally on this journey so far?
there's so many, it's hard to pick one. From a business perspective, having people come up to me this year and say, you inspired us last year, we took some of the ideas you introduced, particularly around the optimized operating model, we implemented them and our business is doing so much better. Or we made contacts and networks which we've turned into real revenue and real profit. That, from a business perspective, is great. From a social perspective, people saying, you've inspired us and we want to give time. I've had numerous people come up to me and say, how can we volunteer our time back into this ecosystem, this hyperlocal space you've created, to coach, to support, to do whatever. And that's just amazing. I mean, it gives you so much energy.
Yeah. So there are a good number of people watching this conversation from various locations, beyond our borders even. As a businessman and an entrepreneur, what advice would you give them listening to this if they're thinking about being in business and perhaps have started out and things are pretty hard and they want to give up? What do you say to them?
Have a passion beyond just making money. Pursue that passion. So what we call that our North Star. So have a destination in mind. Build people around you who feel the same way. Don't just crowd in what you think are experts, crowd in people who are aligned with you. And then once you've done that, so having the North Star and getting people who are aligned with you, get the right information in the room and make it work. And it's hard. There are going to be days where you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. You have to get out of the bed in the morning. To be successful as an entrepreneur, it is a 24/7 hustle. And I've met the most extraordinary entrepreneurs across Africa. And I've traveled from north to south and east to west. And I'm incredibly privileged. But some of the most inspirational times I've had have been in marketplaces in Lagos or Abuja or Kaduna or in Nairobi or in Mwanza or wherever it happens to be. The lessons I've learned from those guys who can make it work day to day to day, just invaluable.
Jonathan Oppenheimer, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for the work that you and your trust are doing to create an enabling environment for all these small businesses to thrive. Thank you so much. Thank you.